Happy to see these live pictures as the former president has just landed at LaGuardia Airport, where he will be answering to criminal charges tomorrow. Shannon, so we understand that on board, part of his entourage that you had just kind of mentioned, he did bring his senior campaign advisor, head of his campaign, some legal advisors, who we also expect. We see that the door of the plane just opening there. Being greeted by the ground crew. So we do expect to see the former president deplaning at any minute. When they left West Palm just about 2.5 hours ago, this was a very quick process. The motorcade pulled up very quickly. We saw the former president get out, walk right onto the plane, as did the rest of his entourage, and off they went, and here they are now. It'll be interesting to see. The former president was greeted by some supporters along the way to the airport at West Palm International Airport. Will that happen here as they make their way into Midtown Manhattan? We do not know. We have not seen large-scale protests. There we do see some of the people getting off the plane. We have not seen the former president quite yet. But again, we are expecting the former president to meet with his legal team to start to strategize for what to expect tomorrow during his historic arraignment with the Manhattan DA.
And every part of this procedure, he will have the Secret Service at tow, at his side. Right in itself is a unique situation for any defendant to have that kind of federal protection and security involved in a case like this. And so it's hard to tell who's who, of course, as you're looking them out. But you know that some of these are going to be Secret Service, some of them are going to be his staff, and some of them are going to be his lawyers as well.
Yeah. Shannon, as you widen out a little bit, can you see how big the motorcade is? And at this point, we're not seeing police, his police escort nearby.
Yeah,
there we
I
do.
don't see.
There we
yeah,
do.
There you go. Not as many police as you would think, but that also may be by design. I mean, look at the amount of vehicles that are here for this escort. And let's just do a count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10 of those vehicles are black, sort of unmarked SUV type vehicles. Presumably that is one of the ones that the former president will be getting into, and that might be part of the design as well. So it's sort of hard to tell which one he is actually in, but right. You can bet that in all of those escorts and all of these vehicles, there are trained professionals in each and every one of them, be it armed services or Secret Service or the police themselves. But I'm sure that is part of the design. But 10 unmarked vehicles, there's a good 5 police vehicles and an ambulance, all in this lineup that is waiting to take the former president off of the plane and take him into Trump Tower.
It really is an unprecedented sight. And as we wait for the former president to deplane, now let's go over a little bit about what he faces in this historic moment. Tomorrow, he will surrender to the Manhattan District Attorney. He will be fingerprinted. He will be booked. And joining us right now is a former federal prosecutor, Franklin Mansour. Franklin, talk to us, if you could, a little bit of what we should be expecting to see in the moments ahead today and tomorrow.
Sure. Thanks for having me. As you guys have already talked about, this is obviously the most anticipated arraignment that any of us will probably ever experience. And the most unique part about it tomorrow will probably be the logistics and getting the former president to the courthouse and into the courthouse as seamlessly as possible. But once he's there, the processes are pretty formulaic. He's self-surrendering, so we're not going to see handcuffs or anything like that. He will be processed, which is a lot of paperwork. He'll probably have to wait a lot. I imagine they'll have an office for him to sit in while he's waiting. And then he'll eventually appear before the judge to be arraigned. And my guess is the DA's office and the court are going to try to make this as smooth and quick as possible.
Franklin, we know that we've heard that the former president will be meeting with his legal team once he gets to Midtown Manhattan. If you're part of his legal team, what are you telling the former president as you're speaking to him about what to expect tomorrow during the arraignment? How are you preparing him?
Right. For tomorrow, I'm telling him it's a pretty formulaic process, right? And there's really nothing substantive that's going to be an issue tomorrow. I mean, there might be some particulars to go over as far as whether he has travel restrictions or things like that. But there's probably been ongoing conversations between his legal team and the prosecutors regarding those issues. So I don't think there's going to be any surprises. So they're probably putting him at ease that this is an administrative step, and that the actual legal fight comes next.
Yeah, you know, Franklin, leading up to this arraignment, Trump himself talked about the possibility of death and destruction. It raised a lot of eyebrows and a lot of concerns in the city. Is it possible that the judge might impose a gag order in this case, considering the potential for violence and injury that surrounds it?
Yes, it's definitely possible. If not now, then at some future point. I imagine there's certainly going to be a conversation about it. And, you know, there are gag orders and restraining orders that the courts have inherent power to issue those. And especially here, if there's a safety concern. So, you know, if Donald Trump, if his rhetoric is aggressive as it tends to be and has been already regarding this case, then that could give the judge very strong grounds to issue a restraining order.
We know we're still looking at live pictures here of the Trump airplane that has just landed at LaGuardia Airport. We're waiting for the former president to come off that plane and head into that very large caravan of vehicles waiting for him. That's when they'll head into Midtown Manhattan. Franklin, I want to ask you, so his defense team has petitioned the court that there should not be cameras allowed in the courtroom tomorrow. How do you think that this judge will decide this? The Trump team claiming that it kind of contributes to a circus-like atmosphere.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be up to the court's discretion. I think it's a reasonable request. So, I mean, it will be interesting to see what the judge's decision-making is based on, but I would not be surprised if the court disallowed cameras.
What do we know about this judge?
We certainly know that he's experienced. We know that he's dealt with Trump-related cases and issues before. And so it's, you know, that's certainly not something Donald Trump is probably happy about, and his attorneys are probably not happy about it. But he's an experienced judge, and that's important for both sides. It can be particularly important for a defense as well, the defense team. In a case like this, where we assume there's going to be some novelty to the charges, having an experienced judge can be important for the defense as well.
So considering his history with overseeing two other Trump-related cases, Steve Bannon and also obviously with the Trump Organization, is there coincidence that Judge Merchan was chosen to oversee this case regarding the former president? Yes.
Yes, the judges are assigned randomly to cases. I mean, there's obviously a limited number of judges that the cases go to for any given case. So this one was assigned to this judge by coincidence. There's no reason to think otherwise.
Franklin, at this point, does Trump's attorneys and presumably Trump know about the details in the indictment, or will that be released tomorrow? Do they get any advance notice on that?
That's a good question. I mean, this is a little unusual for so much time to go by where we know that a grand jury is indicted and we haven't seen the indictment. And I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I would assume that the defense team knows what the charges are in some form or another.
And what do you think their best strategy is so far? I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of speculation about campaign finance irregularity and violating that. But we're talking about New York state law that may be overseeing what was a federal election. So if you are a defense attorney, are you making some sort of argument stating that New York state law has no business dealing with a federal issue?
Certainly. I mean, we have to see what the charges are. I mean, that's the million-dollar question and a really good question. And the presumption has been so far that this is a business records violation case, which I think is a pretty good assumption, and that it's going to be tied to a campaign finance violation like Michael Cohen was convicted of, which would be a federal campaign finance violation. And we know that no court has ruled in New York on whether a federal crime can be linked to a business records violation to sort of take that business records violation from a misdemeanor to a felony. So all of those issues will certainly become more clear tomorrow once we get to see what the charges actually are.
What would a prosecution need to really nail down a case that makes the crossover between the campaign funding and the business fraud?
Well, while there could be legal issues with combining those crimes, the evidence certainly, the hush money payments, the grand jury investigation has all been about campaign finance violation in one form or another. It's the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels to benefit the campaign. So I think that's going to be the narrative that the prosecutors are pushing, regardless of the charges they use to bring that narrative forward.
So you were looking at live pictures of from Newscopter 7 of the Trump plane at LaGuardia Airport. It landed about 7 minutes ago. We still have not seen former President Donald Trump step off that plane. We have seen a lot of Secret Service. Oh, there he is right there.
That's him right there, yes.
There he is right there.
His red tie, his blonde hair. It's definitely him getting into his vehicle at this moment. They're securing the door. It is a first U.S. president in history getting ready to face criminal charges in connection to the Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's investigation into hush money paid to an adult film star. And our reporting has the former president facing more than 30 criminal charges in connection to this probe. And as we've been saying, it is a complicated case about hiding hush money as business expenses ahead of a presidential election, and whether that will be as difficult or not difficult will be left in the court to decide. But it is nonetheless a historic moment.
Yeah. Let's bring in Shannon Sohn. She is in Newscopter 7. Shannon, now that we're seeing a flurry of activity at LaGuardia Airport, what are we expecting next now that the former president is in that second car, that second vehicle, SUV, and expected to head very soon into Midtown Manhattan?
Yeah, and it actually looks like they are now going to get ready to get on their way. The last of the entourage is now apparently deboarding the plane, and we're just going to bring this shot out. As you mentioned, he is in that second vehicle, the one closest to the steps, but you see a lot of people now getting off of the plane and entering their vehicles. And at this point, and we're just going to bring the shot in a little bit for you again, you'll notice that they've gotten all the luggage off of the plane as well. So they're still waiting to put that luggage in some of these vehicles. But just a few moments ago, we did see the former president get into this vehicle. As you mentioned, he had on a red tie, and he got off the plane before the majority of the entourage, which just got off the plane mere minutes ago. So at this point, as we bring the shot out for you one more time, you'll see those people we saw getting off are now all making their way to these various vehicles. There's about 3 or 4 pieces of luggage left that need to be taken from the tarmac into these waiting vehicles as well. But I think that once that happens, this is quickly going to get on the way. And I think what we are expecting to have happen is sort of a jump frog kind of approach that the police are going to take, where some police go ahead, block off exits so that no roads hopefully will be closed for a long duration during this motorcade that is going to take Trump from LaGuardia to Trump Tower in Midtown. What they will likely do is close some roads that lead on to the roads that they are taking, just briefly to let the motorcade through, and then reopen behind them. Some of those officers will jump ahead to some intersections leading up to where they are going, and they'll proceed in that manner until Trump is at Trump Tower. And again, then it's just a matter of what entrance will he be going in. We, of course, have media out in front of Trump Tower. There's been increased security there with barricades put up that hadn't been there just a few days ago. So that has really been bumped up in the last 24 to 48 hours, really. And that's basically what we're waiting to see happen now. It looks like the last of the entourage has gotten off the plane. The door is still open. There may be a straggler or two, but all of the luggage is now off the tarmac and into these waiting vehicles. So now I think it's just a waiting game to see when they're ready to go, and that's just a matter of coordination by the NYPD to make sure that they have officers along the route that are ready to close roads as they need to be closed, so that they can get Trump to Trump Tower in Midtown. And, you know, all told, who knows how long that's going to take. You know, I'm going to have Captain Randy look out the right side there and see what it looks like on the Grand Central Parkway. It looks like traffic is actually flowing fairly well for this entourage, so we'll just see. It's a matter of time now. You see some of the vehicles starting to move into position, so we'll see exactly what's going to happen next, but now the movement is starting to happen.
Shannon, you talk about traffic, and earlier the mayor and NYPD commissioner held a press conference saying security is going to be tightened in the city, and the mayor was urging drivers to avoid the city today and tomorrow, particularly as potential protests and road closures as the former president moves from one location to another. The mayor and police commissioner also urging calm. Let's listen to what they said.
Tomorrow is a day that's going to draw a great deal of attention to our city. And we know there are many questions around the movement of the city, and we want to make sure that we send a very clear and loud message. As the deputy mayor stated, New York City is always ready. We know that this is a city where our NYPD and other law enforcement entities must be prepared at any given moment for anything to happen in this city. To start, I want to make it clear. The commissioner has stated over and over again, there has been no specific credible threats to our city at this time. And all New Yorkers should go on with their regular activities. That means going to work, going to school. We're going to do our job as we always do. If you usually drive, we're stating take public transportation. It is easy to get around on public transportation because we expect some disruptions and additional traffic. There's a great deal of additional traffic that may come in the city, and there will be street closures near the courts and throughout the city. While there may be some rabble-rousers thinking about coming to our city tomorrow, our message is clear and simple. Control yourselves. New York City is our home, not a playground for your misplaced anger. We are the safest large city in America because we respect the rule of law in New York City. And although we have no specific threats, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is known to spread misinformation and hate speech, she stated she's coming to town. While you're in town, be on your best behavior. As always, we will not allow violence or vandalism of any kind, and if one is caught participating in any act of violence, they will be arrested and held accountable, no matter who you are. And I want to again thank the police department, the commissioner, for their response and for the necessary preparation as we deal with this major historical potential event that will take place in the city. At this time, I'd like to introduce the police commissioner of the city of New York.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. As always, the NYPD is prepared to ensure that everyone is able to have their voices heard peacefully while exercising their First Amendment rights. We do this work in close collaboration with our federal, state, and local partners, because keeping our city safe is absolutely a collective effort. As the mayor stated, there are no credible or specific threats to New York City at this time. New Yorkers may see an increased police presence in parts of the city and should anticipate intermittent road closures over the next 2 days, particularly in Manhattan. To avoid delays, I too urge everyone to use mass transit when possible. As I said, our job is to facilitate and safeguard the rights of people to express themselves and those going about their daily activities. But I will remind everyone that violence and destruction are not part of legitimate, lawful expression, and it will never be tolerated in our city. The people we serve know this, just as they know that the NYPD will be out there today, tomorrow, and every day to make sure that they are safe.
And that is the NYPD Commissioner Keechant Sewell and Mayor Adams, who spoke earlier today about all of the security that is now in place as the former Vice President Donald Trump has just landed at LaGuardia Airport, and his motorcade right now, as you can see it right there from our live pictures from Newscopter 7, currently en route on this service road, just about to get on the highway into Midtown, to Manhattan, for this major historical event that will happen tomorrow as the former president answers to charges when his indictment is unsealed by the Manhattan DA.
We will continue to follow the very latest on ABC7 NY and, of course, bring you updates on Channel 7 on the air throughout the day.
We hope you join David and I on Eyewitness News First at 4 coming up in just a few minutes. Thanks so much for joining us.
This is New York's #1 news. Channel 7 Eyewitness News. With Liz Cho and David Navarro. And Lee Goldberg with the exclusive AccuWeather forecast.